put Jaime Escalante on my wall. Before it was just kind of leaning, but now he made the wall of fame, just like the painting. There's the painting that Dad had of
Yeah,
the child. That's on my wall, and so
that's
they're
cool.
like officially up now.
So did you get like hooks or something? Like little, I mean,
It's not hooks.
mhm,
Oh, well, I have a hook that I
mhm.
put my calendar on, but they're like these. They're almost like these no damage wall stickies, and
Right.
you just got to press firmly, and they're there. And
Okay, I think I know what you're talking about because I have a couple of those for my wall. And after I said, oh, I wonder if he has a stickies thing. Okay, yeah, those are big now. I mean, they have so many ways of putting pictures on a wall now. I mean, there's so many different ways of doing it.
yeah, I don't
Uh,
feel comfortable nailing things to these
yeah,
walls. I
yeah,
just
especially if it's at your house. Yeah. This week, Ruben, I was thinking about it this week. I think this week we started our podcast. It was in February 14th or like
yeah,
Valentine's Day. So it's
20,
like 3 years now, huh?
2021.
Yeah, 2021. So this is 2024. So 3 years. Pretty cool. Pretty cool.
It's cool.
Just thought I'd throw that at you.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to the show. Today, I thought, Jacob, we would talk about 3 things I did as a new teacher that make me cringe today. Oh boy, there's a few things. And but you know what? Um, it's okay to cringe. And I got this from somebody else, the idea of if you cringe at your past, that means you're growing. That means you're not doing things today that you used to do as a newbie. And that falls for anything, not just teaching, right? Not everybody watches this as a teacher. Just things that you used to do in your career. You've learned, you've grown, you watched other teachers, which is the best way, isn't it?
Mhm.
So I'll start, Jacob, by just asking you, what's one thing that you used to do that you don't do anymore and you're glad it's over?
Yeah, I always share this with Kimberly, my wife, that I wish I was this teacher I am now that when I first started, because you just grown and you're more mature and so forth, and things that you've learned over the years. But that's just life, right? But one thing, Ruben, is I do something that I didn't do back then is I pivot my lesson when it's not going well. Where when I was younger, I would be teaching a lesson and I would be like, just got to finish it. You just want to get through it. And without realizing your audience is lost or they're not sure exactly where you're going. And now I pivot when I say, okay, I could see my audience that they're either I'll repeat it or I'll say, let's do something else here that will kind of explain it better or let's work in group. I just know how to change it up real quick. Where in the past, I looked at my audience and I might just freeze and go like, I just got to get through it, get through it, and then I'll just fix it. But now I feel like I'm better at pivoting and making changes as I'm teaching. So I think that's made me. I wish I would have done that when I was younger. It kind of makes me cringe now that I don't do that. So I didn't
Yeah,
do that back then.
I remember Dina, our friend Dina
Mhm.
Estrada, who was a teacher for many years, said to me that she has done this. She'll be in the middle of she told me this years ago, so I remember she said she has been in the middle of a lesson, and she was teaching, I think, fourth grader. No, early, not high school. I know that. Maybe sixth graders around there. And she's got this fun lesson, or she thought it was, and then in the middle of it, she goes, "Guys, this is not working. We're going to do something else." And I remember her telling me that and thinking, "You have the freedom to do something like that, to like go through in the middle." Like it gave me freedom to be able to do that. Like, guys, you know what? And the students are. She explained this to me. Students are with you. They're rooting for you. They're not going to hold that against you. So that's a really good point. Pivoting away from a lesson that's not working.
Right.
Boy, do I cringe when I think about this. Um, it's really related to the third point, but I used to lecture my students. I used to sit there and just talk at them and and wow them with my my efforts of persuasion and my speaking abilities. I'm looking for a particular word that
Right.
eludes me now. But that can keep them interested, especially if you have a good story to tell. But it's not the best way to teach. And I think, as I was reflecting on it this week, why did I do that? especially in certain there's certain classrooms that I used to teach at where there were a lot of you know, learners that were not advanced at all, and I think it's because when I first started teaching, I was in the university and just graduated, so I was used to the lecture style. But now you need to sit them down and engage. They have to engage. They have to speak. It's not about yourself. And they're going to lose most of what you're saying. They have to engage and participate in the learning process. And I didn't know that in the beginning. I thought it was
Yeah.
just me talking, them learning. Nope. So I cringe.
No.
Okay, let's go to the second thing, Jacob. What's the second thing that you look back on and think, no, I shouldn't have done this.
Yeah, I was thinking about that this week, Ruben, about the things in my past. It's good to reflect and try to better yourself. But as I was thinking, when I was younger, I used to take things very seriously, very take them very personally. And so if a kid said something, was having a bad day, I would just get offended if they said something like, "Oh, this I hate doing this," or I hate doing journals or whatever it was. But I think, you know what, I would get a little hurt. Now I'm like, you know what, they're having a bad day, but I'm not gonna let them affect me. I remember we reviewed a book, Don Miguel Ruiz's book, The Four Agreements, and one of his agreements is, hey, don't take anything personally. And since I've been doing that, oh, my life is so much better. And not just students, but even staff, because everybody is allowed to have a bad day or say things they don't mean, or even if they do mean it, just don't take it too personally. If you feel like you're doing right, or you feel like you're doing some good things, don't take it to a point where it's going to affect your day. You're going to be depressed or miserable. But anyway, that's one thing I feel like I do differently is I don't take it too personally anymore. Things that I hear in the class.
That's a good one. I think that is very natural. We're humans. We want our students to like us, and we don't want to hear that we're boring. And man, I think if I were to rewrite these 3 points, maybe I would. But I think maybe that was probably related to my first point. Is I hated the idea of being boring when I was early on as a teacher, but now I don't care. I don't care if my students think I'm boring. Isn't that interesting? It doesn't bother me as much, at least. Maybe I shouldn't say I don't care. I want them to like my class. Not
Right.
to with my words, but my goal is different now. It's strictly that they engage in the content and they learn and they level up. So second thing for me would be, I guess I just talked about myself too much, in class. I would talk about my past, where I grew up, city I grew up in, what my parents were like, what my siblings were like, what car I drove, if I was dating. And so I didn't understand the boundaries issue and that it was such a time waster. But in about 20 years ago, a student of mine drew a picture of me um, and really, some of them were such good artists, and they drew a picture. And I think at the time I had a little bit of a goatee or something, and she drew that, and then she described me funny, a couple of things, and then the third point was talks about himself a lot, and I just thought I really do, I really do, and I started paying attention to myself, and I realized I'm not going to do that this week, and I got way more done in the class. I realized I didn't realize how much I talked about myself.
Yeah.
And it was a different mission after that.
It seems
Anyway,
like kids complain about that a lot about I hear them talk about other teachers, and that's what they
yes,
complain about a lot.
absolutely. Absolutely. I have heard that too. Yes. Okay. Let's go on to point number three. Jacob, what is it?
I think this is something I learned in the last few years, Ruben, and I didn't do it when I was younger. And that was accepting late work, also allowing students to take a test again, where I'd be like, no, 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 it's over. When I was younger, and I wasn't very, I didn't really think about it. I don't think. Now I look back, I go, wait a minute, they're doing the work. Let them, if it's late, well, I think some maybe a point or two away, but I want them to still be able to turn in their work if there's something they're getting something out of it. And test is like, wait a minute. Uh, if they want to retake a test, why not? If they're going to learn something out of it, if they're going to get something out of it and improve, why not? So I'm not a stickler on that anymore. I don't. That's not a hill I want to die on. No, I actually think it's a good thing if they're able to give that more opportunities to to turn in stuff and so forth. But I'm not sure how you feel about that one.
That's a good one. I usually don't let them retake the test only because in my mind, it's a small point, but in my mind, I'm thinking they're going to get the standard anyway in another 2 weeks. And I tell them that I go, if you fail the test, I go, don't worry about it. We're going to redo the standard in a couple of weeks. And then their face changes, their countenance changes because they realize, oh, there's less pressure. This isn't a game breaker because I don't grade them on point. I explain this
Yeah.
to them sometimes. Sometimes they're not sure what I mean, but I explain, you know what? So this one point you're making is big because I was gonna talk about standards-based grading as my third, but I did something else. But the idea of, you know what? You missed the test, you can take it. You didn't turn in your assignment. I don't tell them this. I go, it doesn't really matter because you're doing well. You demonstrated mastery or at least completion of that standard. Who cares if you didn't turn in the assignment? I don't use those language. I don't use that. But I look at things different. I don't look at points. It's about what you focus on, that what matters, what truly matters. That's a good one.
Yeah. I mean, even with that, I just when you were sharing it, it reminds me of I don't even put tests as high score. They're not like they don't kill you if you do poorly in it. Before I used to do 100 points. Now it's like 25 points. It's very minimal. So if they really crash and burn on a test, it's not going to kill them. I always tell them, you guys, you're fine. Do well
Right.
next time. I'm gonna offer another activity where you're gonna be fine. So it's always about encouraging them too, so they don't get you know down and down the dumps. So they get affected by it, like, oh shoot, no. You're gonna get some more opportunities. So yeah, I think this is good, Ruben, to reflect on
Right.
our
Right.
past.
Yeah. I reminded by this kid who figured out my strategy
Mhm.
and stopped turning in his work, but would just kill the quizzes because the quizzes were the reason why there were more and I kept them more points is because those were the standards. That's demonstrated
Sure.
standard, right? So those were the high points. And the homework, kids were turning in something, but he figured me out, real smart kid. And but what he mastered, I mean,
Yeah.
he was getting A's. And I didn't bother him. And teachers were like, why don't you address his behaviors right now? I go, he's getting an A in my class. I mean, his behavior is what?
They're matching the standards, so why not?
He's drawing and he's hitting the standards. So after he left my class, he went to 11th grade. Him and this other kid referred to me as God. Oh, you mean God? They called me
Wow,
God.
Ruben.
I don't like being called God, but I know why he called me that because I wasn't really emphasizing these little things that used to bother you and me,
Yeah.
that I didn't sweat the small stuff. Okay. My third point is kind of a weird one, is I didn't have my SPED credential, which is weird, you don't have to have a SPED credential to be a good teacher, but for
Mhm.
me, it opened up a world of this idea of accommodations, of individual learning plans. Notice I didn't say individual IEP, individual education plan, but I just mean students can have individual plans, even if they're not students with IEPs,
Right.
because this helps all students. Preferential seating, getting close to the board, moving the student away from another one, small group setting, all these things that we learn. And by the way, I still keep my list in a folder of when I first was introduced to this
Yeah.
many, many years ago. I kept it. I go, this is helpful anywhere. Shorten the assignment, create individual contract, provide student buddy, provide peer tutor. This is all IEP stuff, SPED stuff that could be useful to any kid. I've taught general ed classes and I use all this or some of it, you can
Right.
choose. But what a world it opened up to me. I'm not intimidated by any class. This is a bad class, the kids are giving behaviors, I go, okay, this is not a unit. These are individuals
Yeah.
that make up a class, and I need to see where the student is at. So, and work with them and accommodate.
No, I like that, but differentiating instruction, that's what really it is, what you're doing. And you're saying, hey, this is a class and I'm looking at all of them. You're not like putting them all as this is just a blank slate of kids. No, each kid is somebody that you're consciously thinking about, and you're saying, okay, this one I know needs to get closer. This one that does have an IEP, so I want to make sure I pay attention there. But here's some other kids who are having issues with this. So I like that, Ruben. I think that's a smart move.
Yes, and I only want to say, I mean, again, I want to emphasize you don't need to have a SPED credential, but what I recommend is that you
Mhm.
really look at some of these ideas of accommodations, and you mentioned differentiated instruction and supports that are just as like a list like this. You take a look at it and go over it. It really will make your life, man, much easier if you're having behavioral issues in the class. Um,
Right.
so very good. What makes you cringe as you look back at your teaching career? And maybe, you know what, there are some rock stars right out the gate, aren't there? Just
Yeah.
first day, they're just doing it. They don't, nothing makes them cringe because they were great from the beginning.
Yeah.
So that's the reality. Thank you very much, everybody, and we'll talk to you next time. Bye bye.